Okay guys, in this lecture we're going to address some of the common issues that most users at some point or other will have when using VLOOKUPs. Now generally these are down to data errors, and I'm just going to clarify that they fall into two distinct categories normally, and they are words or numbers. So we'll cover words first. Now at the moment what I've done is I've created this little data entry cell, so I've coloured it in yellow. This is where we're looking up from, and I have a very simple data table here with names down the first column and ages down the second column, and I've built a simple VLOOKUP here. If I hit F2, we can see that A13, our lookup value, is looking here. Our data array is A1 through B11, which is this area here. We're reading from the second column, which is age, and we're looking for an exact match, which is false. So when I type Tracy, everything's hunky-dory and we get 24. If I type David, we get 29, which is exactly what we expect. And if I type John, we get an error. Now, one of two things has gone wrong in this instance. Now, you may be looking at this and think, I know exactly what that is. The John in here is capital J, and the John down here is lowercase. So the first thing you'll probably try is capitalizing the J, but you'll still get exactly the same error. And VLOOKUPs are case insensitive, so it doesn't matter whether it's all uppercase or lowercase, proper case, title case, any case, it doesn't make any difference to VLOOKUP. So our error lies in one of two places. It's either here with the value we're looking up, or it's here with John in this data table. Now, the most common mistake that people make with these kind of things is that if they look at this cell, they'll say, that says John, and I look at this cell and that says John too, so what could possibly be wrong? Well, if we click into the formula bar on our data entry, that's this cell here, we can see that specifically and exactly this cell says John and nothing else. Okay, so that's good. But if we have a look at John here and click in the formula bar, we can see it's actually different. It says John, and then we can see that we have a space between the N and where our cursor's blinking. And that's because we have a spare space, a trailing space at the end of the name. Now, because we've told Excel to look for an exact match, it hasn't actually found an exact match. The first four letters are exactly the same, but in the data table we have an extra trailing space, which essentially makes it a different entry. So all we're going to do is delete that and press enter. Now, there's a very quick way of getting rid of all of these problems if you have them, and that's always my first check, is do I have any trailing spaces? So here we go. What we're going to do is use the trim function. So I'm just going to say equals trim, open brackets, and I'm going to point to this cell just here, and I'm going to close the brackets. So now I have Alan, and I'm just going to copy that all the way down. So now I have what appears to be exactly the same data in here and exactly the same data in here. So if I were to type Alan, we can see that Alan also errors because Alan also has a trailing space. So we've used trim, we've pointed to this cell, and this data set here will have no trailing spaces. So all we're going to do, right click, copy, come over our original data, right click, paste specials, values, and that will now load all of the names in here, but all of the trailing spaces will have been removed. So now I can safely delete that, and now we'll have a data table that works. So let's just check that with John again. There you go, and John's 27 years old. Okay, that's the normal problems that you would encounter with words. Now let's take a look at numbers. Okay, with numbers, normally it's a formatting issue. So at the moment I've created a simple data table here that says 1, 2, 3 all the way through 10 and a bunch of colours at the side. This is the value we're looking up, and this is our VLOOKUP formula. So we're looking at A12 as our lookup value, that's this one. Our data range is A1 through B10, which is here. We're looking at from the second column and we're finding an exact match. Now, we could look at this and say, well, I have a number 5 in here and I have a number 5 in here, so that really should work, but this is a formatting issue. What we actually have here is the number 5, and if we look at the data in this cell, what we actually have is apostrophe 5. Now it's also been right aligned, so it does look like it's a number, but Excel will actually treat that as text, which is completely different to a number. So we have the text 5 in our data file and the number 5 as our lookup value. Now, if your source data is something that refreshes and you're importing it and it expands as you're working through it, the last thing you want to do is go through and remove all these little apostrophes, because there could be thousands of entries. The simplest way to solve this one is just go to your lookup value and change that to the format in your data table. So I'm just going to introduce a little apostrophe before the number 5 and hit enter. And now our VLOOKUP works perfectly. Okay, I'll see you in the next lecture.